Don, do you want to touch on mushrooms and Ayurveda and kind of go around dosages? And I just went through your little quiz about the different types of in Ayurveda, the Vata and the was it Pitta?
Yeah, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha.
Hmm.
So the Vata is the air sign, the Pitta is the fire constitution, and Kapha is the water constitution. So the three active elements are air, fire, and water. There's also ether and earth, but they're more containers than active elements. I think this is really important for long-term health, and a lot of people take products like mushrooms, and especially products like reishi, for longevity. I mean, you literally call yours longevity. And so what we're trying to do is use these to enhance the things that they enhance, which is the immune system and the nervous system and the heart. There's so many things that they do. But another level of that is that when we put in the refinement of Ayurveda, we want to make sure that we're not at the same time imbalancing the dosha. You know what I mean? And the dosha is really controlled a lot by taste.
Okay.
So
Can you explain that further?
Your reishi extract is very bitter. And so that is particularly good for a Pitta constitution. Its fact is the number one taste to reduce fire, which is very interesting because fire also relates to inflammation. So reishi is a very powerful anti-inflammatory. But Vata, that's kind of the taste bitter is made up of air and ether, which is what Vata is made up of, air and ether. So it can aggravate Vata. So it doesn't mean Vata can't use it. And also it's cooling, extraordinary cooling. Bitter is the most cooling flavor you can get in Ayurveda. So they're already cold, so you don't want to make them colder. It's really simple. You just add ginger powder, for example. You just add a warming herb. It doesn't mean you don't use it, but you add a warming herb, and then you might want to add something sweetening. So you literally might want to eat it with some rice. I mean, I know it would be not great tasting, but that's the whole idea in Ayurveda of sweetness isn't just necessarily sugar, but you could use a sweet herb like licorice or, some kind of, and you could even use a sweetening because that bitter is a little bit too cooling for them. But the other thing is that, and with the kapha, they are not as cold as the Vata, but they're heavy. There's earth and water. So the bitter is okay for them, but a little bit of pungency, and again, there would be good to warm them up, but no sweet, because sweet is earth and water. So that's too heavy for them.
Yeah, it was
interesting.
It's
not that complicated. It sounds complicated, but it's not that complicated. Bitter is the main flavor, and over here you add, a bit of sweetness, and pungency, and over here you just add some pungency,
Right.
And
so that's still talking about balance, right?
Talking about balance. And again, this isn't important for a week. This isn't important for even maybe 3 weeks, but a year, 2 years, 3 years. Yeah, this is important. This is what you're doing to bring you into balance every day. And if you're using this, and then the other factor that's really important is that the three doshas process very differently. They have very different metabolism. So the Vata is like a hummingbird, very fast metabolism. Every couple hours, they need some nourishment because they're like, the Pitta is your standard medical model 3 times a day, like every 4 hours, and it's kind of a joke with Pittas, like, they're like a clock. They're hungry at 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. They're hungry at noon, and they're hungry at 6. And you really want to feed them because it's fire. And if they don't feed them, they get cranky. What's that? Hangry, hungry, angry. And neither do you fight with your partner just before a meal, because especially if you both have Pitta, and you just feed each other and then see if you're still angry at each other. And then the kapha, because it's earth and water and slower metabolism, they really only need it once or twice a day, because it's gonna be in their system for much longer, and they need a bit stronger dosage. The Vatas need a smaller dosage, and the Pitta needs the regular dosage.
Yeah, because I definitely was trending on the Pitta for both the physical and the mental.
Yeah,
and it's interesting because I wouldn't really call myself sort of like a fire person per se.
Yeah,
I was like, fiery. When I was talking with my friend the other day, we were talking more of like, this is more like the TCM side of the wood. and the metal, and then we were just talking about being more like wood oriented, where we're kind of growing and adapting. And but yeah, so it kind of took me aback a little bit when I was like, oh, I'm fire in this, and I'm sure it means different things, and
Well,
it
yeah,
must
yeah. I
change
mean,
over time too. And
yeah. It changes during the seasons. That's not the reason it's really important, like in the summertime. And it's also there's a scale, like I had a pitta who came to me for a consultation on the way to the consultation, he got into a fight. Like, I mean, there's like really, really pitta people, and you can look at them. They're wandering around in the wintertime with a t-shirt on. I mean,
Right.
every time we see a group of people walking down the road or somewhere, we just look at them. There's one person with no clothes on, just, well, we guess what dosha it is, and the other people got big coats and stuff on. We have a mechanic here on Pender Island. He never wears a shirt. He mostly wears a tank top year round. Working on cars and stuff. And
Yeah.
and that's because he's a complete total pitta. I'm kind of more in the middle. I'm not an extreme pitta, but I'm not also, but I am fiery, and I get hot, and and so. I need to be able to cool down, and that's the biggest important thing for there. But going back to the mushrooms, it's just a bit of a refinement thing, but I think people may get more results from their practice of using the herbs if they did that a bit, because another thing is that what this is saying is that the activeness of the herb is lasting that long. So if you're trying to bring about some kind of change with the mushroom, then with the vata, a little bit every couple hours is going to keep that
Right.
that thing. And so it may not be important, after they bring the system back into balance, then they could, instead of doing it 5 times a day or something, they could do it 3 times a day. Same as the pitta, they would want to do it 3 times a day during the period of, but then they might only do it once or twice a day. And with the kapha, they may do it twice a day when they're starting out to try and get something to happen, but then they may go down to just once a day.
Right. I believe Justin touched on that in our previous call when he was saying, depending on the temperament, you might be having 3 times a day versus like once versus twice.
Yeah. And we can make a link to my book, the Constitution thing, so that people can look at their Constitution, and it's really it's another fun way to know a bit about yourself. And like you said, you can learn things from TCM about yourself. You can learn things about Ayurveda. People can do numerology, just astrology, but we kind of get to know ourselves a little bit more. And the reason for that is that makes us hopefully a bit more adaptable to our environment, both inner and outer. And that's where I found Ayurveda to be extremely helpful.